Hey brother! Ben, it is literally the first confirmed bit of magic you ever read in Harry Potter. Dumbledore arrives on Privet Drive and rummages through his cloak for what appears to be a silver cigarette lighter. This is the Deluminator, which he then uses to put out all of the lights on Privet Drive before walking to number 4. Although why he needs to walk to number 4 and didn't just apparate directly in front of the house is beyond me. But in any case, I think we are so unused to magic when it first shows up that we don't really consider it very much. And it doesn't really show up again in any meaningful way until the Deathly Hallows, where you've been exposed to so much magic that it kind of seems insignificant and awfully convenient just for Ron. Like, really? Dumbledore correctly predicted Ron would abandon them and needed a specific way to get back, and that they would be hiding magically and it would be difficult for him? Whatever. But I think there is a lot more going on behind the scenes with this little device, so today we are going to discuss the origins of the Deluminator. Hey, brother! Here's the thing. Why does Dumbledore even need a Deluminator? Like, it's not really that useful. I mean, later on in that same book, Dumbledore even says he doesn't need an invisibility cloak. He can make himself invisible. Like, it's more conspicuous to make all the lights go away than it would be to just be invisible. Although I suppose, to be fair, putting out the lights is not the Deluminator's only use, or maybe even its intended use, just its most common use. It's not until the Deathly Hallows, when he gives it to Ron, that we learn of its true power. And in case you need a refresher, here's how it works. After Ron abandons Harry and Hermione, he is eventually able to rejoin them by using the Deluminator. Anytime either Harry or Hermione says Ron's name, he is then able to hear a small snippet of the conversation they were just having, click the Deluminator, a ball of light comes out, enters his chest near his heart, and transports him to the location. And I will admit, even the first time I read this, I was like, wow, that was mega convenient. It feels like she just needed something for Dumbledore to leave Ron. And yet, looking back now after the release of Fantastic Beasts, I think there's a lot more to it. First of all, like, how is it even working? Are we supposed to think that Dumbledore specifically enchanted it so that it would teleport Ron just to Harry and Hermione? Like, and does it only work if Harry and Hermione say his name? Like, certainly other people must have been saying Ron's name. Why wasn't he ever hearing them? And would it work the same for other people? Yes, I do think it would work for anyone, and I think how it works can be understood by dissecting how it worked for Ron. Namely, that it only worked when Harry and Hermione said his name. Because why only them? And the answer lies on a gravestone in Godric's Hollow, Dumbledore's mother and sister's gravestone, which read, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Ron treasures his friendship with Harry and Hermione above everything else, and therefore his heart is always with them even if he is physically separated from them. And remember, when the blue orb enters Ron's body, it specifically says next to his heart. The Deluminator is basically the physical manifestation and means of accomplishing this quote, which by the way is from the Bible, Matthew 6:21, not a Dumbledore original, which I think is only important because it means that Dumbledore chose a quote that describes the effects of the Deluminator and didn't seek to create an object to fulfill that quote. And also, I guess it's a really nice sentiment for his deceased family members. Which is not to say Dumbledore wasn't trying to create some sort of powerful object, though. Because obviously the people who fulfill that quote for Dumbledore were Kendra and Ariana, and we know that their deaths basically haunted him for the rest of his life. When he was in the cave with Harry retrieving the Horcrux and drinks the potion, we hear him reliving a terrible moment from his life where Grindelwald was torturing his sister, and we know that when he looked into the mirror of Erised, what his heart desired was his family, alive and whole. And we also know that one of the reasons he was seeking the Deathly Hallows to begin with is because he thought the Resurrection Stone would mean the return of his mother and sister. And he reveals to Harry that he didn't think the objects were actually created by death, but instead that the Peverell brothers were just highly gifted wizards who succeeded in creating these powerful objects. And even as a young wizard, Dumbledore knew he was highly gifted, so I don't know, to me it seems like it would be easier to try and also create a similar object than try and find a single stone in the entire world. Like, that's Dumbledore's solution for it not being used again. They leave it in the forest, just anywhere. That's how they get rid of it. That's my guess for his motivation to have ever created the Deluminator, which again, he doesn't really need. But whether or not it was his motivation, how it works I think remains the same. Because yes, I do have a guess as to how he created it as well. I was recently rewatching Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or Fabatwith, and noticed a particular effect of Credence as an Obscurial. Let me know if you can spot it. The lights go out. And not because Credence is destroying power breakers or anything, he's just flying past them. This and the Deluminator are the only examples of lights being doused by magic in the books, and I have to think the two are connected. Yes, I know we said earlier it's not particularly useful magic for Dumbledore, who can just make himself invisible, but it is unique magic. Like, Mad Eye himself even borrows the Deluminator from Dumbledore at one point, suggesting that just putting out lights is not something that can really just be accomplished by magic. But so what? Both things put out lights. I mean, we would still need some sort of connection between Dumbledore and an Obscurial, right? Well, if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you know there is absolutely a connection between Dumbledore and an Obscurial, because it is all but confirmed that his younger sister, Ariana, was one. I'll put a link to that video right here, but in a nutshell, what happens is, as a child when she was attacked by the Muggle boys, that's what causes her to repress her magic, which is what leads to her developing an Obscurus inside her. This is why they kept her a secret, and how she eventually ended up killing her mother, because her magic just exploded out of her. There are also a few scenes in Fabatwith which hint at the possible origins of the Deluminator, like for example when Graves is asking why Dumbledore is so interested in Newt.
What makes Albus Dumbledore so fond of you?
And Newt wondering what use anyone could possibly have for an Obscurus. Plus, why does Newt even have one at all? I mean, in the movie, it mostly serves to educate us, the audience, about them, but certainly him owning one must come to fruition at some point, right? I am thinking that Dumbledore's interest in Newt has to do with his experience with Obscurials, and that much like Newt, Dumbledore was somehow able to preserve the one that was inside of his sister. If the one Newt has isn't in fact her, I mean, maybe he was just lying about it. And we know Nicholas Flamel is going to be in the next Fantastic Beast, and he's already created the Sorcerer's Stone, so he has to make something, and could there be a more rare ingredient? In any case, what I'm suggesting is that the Obscurus that was inside Ariana will have been preserved and somehow used to create the Deluminator. Which is why even though Dumbledore doesn't need a Deluminator, he carries it with him all the time. It would also explain why we never see Dumbledore use it the same way Ron did, because the people who could summon Dumbledore are already dead. And it would still make sense as the put-outer. I mean, if the Obscurus takes light like we see in Fantastic Beasts, then yeah, if you click it open and there's a little bit of it in there, it would suck it in. And oh, the tragic irony that Dumbledore might have been trying to create something that could bring back his family, but instead created something that his family could only ever use to bring him to them. But Ben, my question for you and everybody else is, what do you think? Will we see the origins of the Deluminator in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? Let me know in the towel section down below. These socks are amazing! Guys, thanks as always for watching this video. Please remember to like if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you want to see how Nagini's origins might be revealed in Fantastic Beasts, you can check out this video right here. And if you ever had questions for Ben and I and would like us to answer things, you should go check us over on Super Carlin Gaming, where we answer questions twice a week and play Mario Kart. That channel right here. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you in another life, brother.